Can you do the doshi?
Can you do the doshi? Three Vows, Heart Sutra, and the lineage, is that? Three Vows, Heart Sutra?
Three Vows, Heart Sutra.
And that's all?
That's all.
Okay.
Yeah. Heart of Great Perfect Wisdom Sutra. Bodhisattva, when deeply practicing Prajnaparamita, clearly saw that all five aggregates are empty and
here for the Dharma talk?
Sure, yes.
Yeah, just behind the center here. Yeah, we sit there and then, do you need a,
Podium?
Maybe.
maybe, okay, yeah, that's right, yeah.
Can I sit here though?
Would you
You
prefer?
want me to sit there?
Wherever you prefer.
Okay, I'll sit there.
Okay.
Even if I didn't have books, this would be nice. Just to.
Yeah, I'll bring your cushions around.
It would inspire me.
Pam had somebody hand make that recently here.
Mine made it.
Yeah, it's teak wood, I think.
It's, no, it's,
Bamboo. It's gorgeous.
it's it's a common tree.
Ash.
Acacia?
Maple.
Yeah.
No, it's,
How many trees can you do?
She's there now?
She's there now, yeah, I can't see her.
Why don't you, make a gallery?
Yeah.
And Teijo will do.
Diane, son, are you there?
See, Neosho, I don't know.
We'll do an opening chant first.
Yeah, okay, which one do you do?
The Dharma is vast and subtle. I'll lead it.
Okay. Or you do the,
Neosho, can you hear us over here?
Call and response.
good.
Not sure if she's able to speak.
Okay.
for those online and here who don't know, this is Teijo Munnich, who is visiting us. She came yesterday to officiate Nonan's memorial service, and she's visiting us from Great Tree in North Carolina, and will provide our Dharma talk today.
Hopefully. I'm so tired. There's a story. I won't start talking until we change. I do that all the time. I'm like, okay, let's
The Dharma is vast and subtle.
The Dharma is vast and subtle.
We now have a chance to see this.
We now have a chance to see this.
Study this and practice this.
Study this and practice this.
May we realize this true meaning.
May we realize this true meaning.
Good morning.
I started to say a while ago, there's this story, and I think it's the Shayoroku, the book of equanimity or something, about this teacher that had not given a talk. He was the head of the monastery, and he hadn't given a talk for a long time, so the monks asked him, could you come and give a talk? And so he went, and he just sat there, and then they rang the bell, and then he left. And I always liked that story because I thought that's the way to give dharma. But I've never actually been able to do it because the tension in the room gets so great after. But anyway, I've been thinking a lot about Bodhicitta lately because last weekend we had a retreat out in North Carolina, and we did the 4 Bodhisattva vows. And I was trying to kind of explain them, try to understand what Bodhisattva vow is about. And of course, when you recite the 4 Bodhisattva vows, it doesn't make sense, because beings are numberless, I vow to free them all. Not possible. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them all. All of these are not possible. And so, through all my explorations in recent days, I have come to the conclusion that bodhicitta is nothing but what happens when we let go and don't try to grab on quickly. So one thing my teacher in Japan said that was certainly true in my case, he said most people come to Zen practice because something in their life isn't working or things are falling apart. And in my case, I was dumped, and I was kind of reeling from losing this relationship. At a certain point, even when something happens that forces you to let go, you have to let go. I had to let go of this relationship, whether I wanted to or not, and at that moment of letting go, I think this is the experience of things as they are. I think Uchiyama Roshi, there's a quote, I'm not sure exactly where it is, I wrote it down, but he talks about, he says, the true mind of beings, that is universal self itself, is vow. The true mind of beings, that is universal self itself, is vow. And really, that's what we experience when we let go. We experience that universal life, this absolute reality, we call it, or there's different ways of saying it. We experience the interconnection of all things, and we experience the impermanence, the swift movement. Dogen Zenji says there are 6,400,099,480 moments in a day. And Kadagiri Roshi says, his commentary on it is that that's, supposed to unravel our minds. It'll put us into the moment. If you think about things going that fast, and me, I have a very analytical mind, so I sat down and I said, well, there's 6,400,000. How many moments are there in 1 minute? How many moments? And that totally unravels my mind. And when we don't grasp, when we just let our minds unravel, that's really when we, as my students at college used to call it, get in the flow. And so, I would describe it to them. I would describe that when you do Zazen, it's this kind of, I didn't talk about it in terms of letting go, but that's what I think about it now. There's this kind of letting go at some point. I always say, because anybody that would do something as stupid as sitting and facing the wall has to let go of something, right? So, at some point when we're sitting there doing shikantaza, no object, resisting the compulsion to do something really. We're just sitting there looking at this wall and really just saying, okay, it's okay to just give my mind a little rest here and not think about anything. And Dogen says it's good, and at some point, we're sitting there for 40 minutes or however long. There are those moments of letting go. There's those moments when you say, oh, I think too much. We don't notice that often. You have to sit down and shut up to notice that you think too much. So that's awakening, it's no big deal. It's just noticing how all these things that we do that get in our way. So I want to try something that Teijo Munnich did with us one time. He said, "Everyone, close your eyes. Close your eyes. And take a few deep breaths and just kind of relax." Now think about the first time or one of the first times that you ever sat down to do zazen. And see if you can get in touch with why you wanted to do it, or why you wanted to continue to do it, what it is, that little spark that brought you to that. And it should come fairly quickly, so you can open your eyes if you want. I immediately, when he said that, I immediately knew. I mean, there was something in my body that knew why I not only got there, but why I continued. And if you can get in touch with that, and we do get in touch with that when we sit, but I think that is Bodhicitta. He said, when he did this little thing with us, like I just did, he said that is where vow comes from. Because I was having a lot of trouble with the word vow, because I was thinking something I have to do. It's not, it's that thing that brings us to the practice, and the thing that we can access by cultivating it. And really all we have to do is sit down and shut up. But even now, I've been doing this Zen thing. I met Teijo Munnich in 1975. So, more than 40 years, and a lot. And I still have resistance to sitting sometimes, Oh, I got something else to do, or oh, I don't feel like this, or somebody asked me, more than once people have asked me, well, isn't it kind of an addiction? Is it meditation kind of an addiction? And I'm like, well, not for me. I wish it was. I wish it was a little easier to get there. So I often say right effort is just getting yourself to the cushion. So this Bodhisattva vow, is really both based on Bodhicitta, and I think it's in Living by Vow. Have you seen that book, Living by Vow? Shohak Okamura put it together. It was based on lectures he gave on different chants that when he was at Minnesota Zen Center for 5 years or so. And anyway, he talks about see, I start these sentences and then go off on tangents and I forget where I started. It'll come back anyway. So Bodhicitta, there's a Bodhicitta is the basis of the Bodhisattva vow. And what I started to say is, he says that what Bodhicitta is, it's kind of that yearning to not suffer. And we don't exactly know what suffering is, until we kind of examine Buddha's teaching about dukkha. At least I didn't. I knew that something in my life was not smooth, but I didn't really know what I was doing that was creating the problem, why I was suffering in that way. And it takes a while to kind of get that, but this is also, I think this is what Bodhicitta also causes us to do, if as he says, it's this yearning to alleviate suffering, first for ourselves and then for others. And I think that's a very natural thing to want to do it for others when we feel some freedom, when we kind of figure something out that kind of alleviates that heaviness that we've been putting on ourselves, when we figure out what it is that we're doing, what it is we're trying to hold on to. And when you look at it closely, it's not substantial, When you really start to understand what this is pointing to, you also are understanding that we don't exist alone. And so it's very natural to not only not want to experience suffering myself, but not to want those around me to be suffering. So, and we try to help. And this Bodhisattva vow, the way that we know it, and this is an interesting translation that I just came across recently. I think it's Robert Aiken, you know who that is. He said, "The many beings are numberless, I vow to save them. Greed, hatred, and ignorance, I vow to abandon them. Dharma gates are boundless, I vow to wake to them. The Buddha way is unsurpassable, I vow to embody it." That one I really like. Because to me, that's how we help each other. This is how we keep the Bodhisattva vow, by making every effort to deepen our own practice so that we embody it. And I learned that from Kata Roshi, because that's what he did. He embodied it. And everything I heard about Noni yesterday was an expression of his embodiment of what this practice is about. And that's hard to do, because it means we have to keep awakening Bodhicitta as much as possible, And, you want to do things that are more fun. Although often, often it happens to me that I sit down on the cushion and I think, I am so grateful for this. I had an experience when I was invited to Italy in 2016 to install an EHI. We're going to install the EHI this afternoon, which is a memorial tablet for someone when they died. And this Italian monk had studied with Kata Roshi in Japan at one time, and he wanted to install an EHI for him at his monastery. And before I left, I gave a talk at the Charlotte Zen Meditation Society. So it really calmed me down. I had just been with my aunt, who we thought was dying. Doctors, everyone said she was dying, but it took another year. But I thought she was dying, so I had been with her in this kind of place of thinking that she was dying. And then I went to Charlotte and we sat together. And I thought, oh, this is so good, right before I get on the plane and go to Italy. Then I go up through New York and get to Italy, and I went immediately to see the Sistine Chapel because I had an overnight in Rome. And then the people at the Rome Zen Center had invited me to stay there. So I was like, good, I have a place to stay. And I got there, and it was just like 30 minutes before Zazen. And I put on my robes and I went to Zazen, and I thought, I am so lucky to have Zazen in my life, because, I didn't say, oh, now I'm going to do Zazen when I get to Rome, but I got there and it was just waiting there for me. And then I went up to Milan and the same thing happened, when I got to the monastery. And in that respect, I'm so happy for it, because it's so easy. And it's not just when you're traveling overseas, but it's all the time. You walk out the door and life starts to, grab you and say, now look at your watch. Now it's time to do this. Now it's time to do this. And we're so fortunate to have, and the thing is Sangha too. We've been talking about Sangha at Great Tree this past year. Sangha, if there wasn't that Sangha in Rome, if there wasn't that Sangha in Milan, if there wasn't that Sangha in Charlotte, then maybe I would have pulled out my cushion and sat somewhere, but you know, Sangha helps us, we all help each other, like potatoes, you know. Maureen probably told you that one. So, does everybody know that image of Sangha?
Yeah, you do.
No,
We talked about the big
The
potato.
way Japanese, and I think Chinese, I think this comes from China, the way Japanese wash potatoes, they put them into a bucket and put in some water and roll them around, and the potatoes all wash each other. And that's the image for Sangha. And that's what it feels like, you know, knocking the dirt off each other, you know. But, you know, we all help each other in that way. So, what I wanted to share with you, what time do I have till?
11.
I mean, what time is it now?
It's 11 right now.
Oh.
Yeah, so you can take as long as you like.
Yeah, thanks, long.
Okay, I just
I
wanted
mean,
to
not
share.
till, you know, not 5 hours, please.
No, I want to have lunch. And so anyway, I just wanted to share this one thing with you, which in this book, Living by Vow, is Shohaku, the way he talks about this, he says, first of all, this is the early Bodhisattva vow, but he says it was designed for people who had already kind of become bodhisattvas, you know, whatever that means. And then there's also this, and then the one that we say, he says that's the personal vow for us to, you know, find our freedom, understand dukkha and delusion and find our freedom. But the earlier one, which he says is directed outward, is directed towards others, may bodhicitta, oh no, sorry, this is not it. I know it's here. Anyway, it's based on the Four Noble Truths. I know, I have the truth somewhere. So I really want to read it to you. I think it's really a very interesting perspective. And for me, kind of more to the point. Here we go. Oh, okay, so I've got it broken up because I talked about this last weekend, so my notes are a little. So the first Bodhisattva vow in the original was, I vow to enable people to be released from suffering. So that directly relates to the First Noble Truth. And the second one directly relates to the Second Noble Truth. I vow to enable people to understand the truth of the origin of suffering. And then my note on that was, my example, why do we continue to chase after something substantial, permanent? And the third one, I vow to enable people to enter the cessation of suffering, that is nirvana. I love this word enable too. And then the fourth one, I vow to enable people to peacefully settle down in the truth of the path leading to the cessation of suffering. But interestingly, I laid it out the way the Four Noble Truths usually are, but interestingly, the fourth Noble Truth is the third vow, and the third Noble Truth is the fourth vow.
Makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Say that again?
The way that this is originally laid out, see if I got it all in one piece, so I don't have to flip it around. Okay, well, I don't know. Okay, here it is. I vow to enable people to be released from suffering. I vow to enable people to understand the origin of suffering. And then the third one, as it's listed in this vow, I vow to enable people to peacefully settle down in the path leading to the cessation of suffering. And the fourth one is to enable people to enter the cessation of suffering, that is nirvana. And Chohaku translates nirvana frequently as freedom. Simple. But anyway, I found that kind of interesting, and I guess it points to the fact that studying the Four Noble Truths is not, or practicing the Four Noble Truths or whatever, it's not something that's sequentially done, And honestly, when I first started studying the Four Noble Truths, I quickly wanted to get to the path because I want to see what to do. And the first one tells you, well, you have to understand dukkha. But one of the most interesting things that I have discovered over the years about the Four Noble Truths, particularly the Eightfold Path, is that the word sama, which is usually translated as right, actually means to unite with, or to walk with, or to harmonize with.
Oh, nice. That's Michigan.
So yeah, it's right. And my teacher, I translated my name Teijo, a pretty lofty name. Te means, he says, authentic. But he also translated Te as right. And so I said to him one time, is that like right, like in the Eightfold Path? And he said, yes. And it is really authentic. What is authentic? So, but I like also to think of it as, harmonizing understanding, harmonizing effort, harmonizing action, harmonizing speech,
What does the Jo mean?
The Jo means equanimity or stillness, because I'm such a quiet person. I always tell people the center of the cyclone is very still. And one of the things I've learned from having that name, which I think is a koan, right? I think that the stillness, we really do have that stillness within us. And we're like, I think it's sort of like Pigpen, in the Peanuts cartoons.
Yeah.
He's got all this dirt around him, but actually Pigpen is a very quiet little guy. And that's sort of the way I think of it, we got all this, I thinking causes a lot of busyness sometimes. You can just quiet that down. I was telling, when we were talking about family meditation the other day, I was saying one of the things that I do with the children is I do these mind globes. You put in glycerin and water into a jar and then glitter. And then you put the screw it on and you show them when it's shaken out. That's when your mind is really busy. But if you just set it down, glitter all goes to the bottom. And I think it's a really good image. It's fun too. It's fun to do it. But it's really what happens, You just, all you have to do is sit down and shut up. That's how Kadagiri Roshi describes Shikantaza. Noni probably told you that.
Yeah, he did, yeah, it's, he always talked about our mind is like muddy water,
Yes,
let the jar sit,
yeah, just let it, and when it's still, you can see to the bottom.
things clarify. If you don't know what you do, if you don't know what you're doing, it's like muddy water. So
Right.
you just sit and things will settle and things will become clear, like that.
Exactly.
And I always say patience, my definition of patience is just letting life unfold. And I think that's what we do when we sit. We used to call it, Minnesota Zen Center, we called it watching your own movie.
Nobody else calls it the Zen movie.
Zen movie,
Yeah,
yeah.
we're sitting here Zen, all the sights and everything else. He used to say that's a Zen movie.
Right. So I just want to share this last quote, and then if we have time for a little discussion. This is Nagarjuna, who is one of my heroes. Yes, and I'm sure you heard about Nagarjuna from Nami. He says, may bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise where it has not yet come to be, and where it has arisen, may it not decline, but grow and flourish ever more and more. Is that right? So, if you have something you want to share.
I wonder if the reason that the vows are impossible is that framing things this way tells you that you're never done. And that kind of counteracts attainment, that,
Yeah.
oh, I've got it now, yes, I've done this, yes, now I'm done. No, you were never done. And I wonder if that's why they're kind of arranged that way.
I think so, and I was also thinking, I think that's probably very true. There's probably a lot of dimensions to that whole idea, but I was also thinking, you know, every time you make that effort to do one of those things, even though you know you can't, you have to let go. And
That's
I really think bodhicitta is letting go,
true.
but the problem is, you can't make yourself let go, you can't make it happen.
Right.
You know? That's what's so, in a way, miraculous about it. It actually helps us to do that. Dogen says so, and he's right, I agree. He says every time we sit down, we awaken, every time. Even if it's your very first time. That's nice. The first time I said that, I was like, wow, that's so great.
For one of those 6 billion.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Segments.
Exactly. How many moments in one period of zazen?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about that. Yeah, and just memorize that number. Even when I memorize that number, it boggles my mind. Or read the gratitude out too.
Is it possible to enter nirvana temporarily and then be pulled back from it?
I mean, I think we do it all the time. That's what we do. That's why we have to find ways to awaken bodhicitta, and that's the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. You know, don't you think?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not it's not some special thing. It's like just everyday life, really. It's just a little bit of nothing. I used to say the middle way was what you glimpsed when you went from one extreme to the other. But I realized, I come to discover that the middle way is just a tiny little movement from where you are. You know, you say, oh my gosh, I'm going to this extreme, but usually we take a big step, you know, and then we go to the other extreme, and then we take a big step. But it's really tiny, so you hardly notice it. You know, it's just like, all it is really, I think, is the acknowledgement of it. Just like noticing we think too much, just the acknowledgement. That's called repentance or sangha. Right? Just, oh my gosh, I'm doing that.
I keep wanting it to be something so different.
I know,
Because
right?
I really want, it's like, okay, I want these magical experiences, and I don't have them. I guess it's probably good that I don't have them, but
Well, it's not possible.
yeah.
You had one with the geese went over.
Yeah, that's true, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
What seems magical though is just something that we haven't thought of, you know.
Mhm.
And I had a couple of those. I had one when I was in the monastery, you know, when I realized that I was the same as the shoji screen. And I mean, it was like so complete.
Mhm.
But then I wanted to have it again. I was trying to have
Right,
it again.
exactly.
And it's like, that's
Make it
not
happen.
possible. I mean, rather than just be grateful that, hey, you know, I had a glimpse of something, woo, 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 you know. But yeah, that's the problem. That's the problem. And if we chase after it, it's impossible to get it because, you know, so there's nothing to attain.
Do you
Oh, yeah.
think that by focusing on how to relieve our own suffering, that we automatically, in the process, relieve other people's suffering?
I think by doing zazen and by doing shikantaza, we become aware of our relationship with other things. I think that's what I've learned from shikantaza. That, you know, it's almost like I can, like the subtle life forms become somewhat tangible, although we can't experience them with our senses, really. You know what I mean? And I think zazen really helps us to experience that. And, you know, when we first experience it, we don't consider it real. That's why we maybe don't realize that we have that experience. You know what I mean? Because it's not familiar. But the more we experience it, the more familiar it becomes. And then we kind of say, oh, you know. My students used to say to me, well, if, I've been in the flow, so if I can get in the flow, I've been in the flow without doing zazen, so why would I do zazen? And I was like, yeah, but do you know how you got there? Zazen helps you learn how to step back. It's not something to get. The Genjo koan, right?
Yeah.
If you chase after it, it's there, Yeah, did you want to say something?
I just love how you said at the beginning, when we first sat, if we recall back our first time sitting, then that experience of letting go, there's bodhicitta that's arising. So it's not something that we have to generate. It's something that's generated. It's
Yeah.
facilitated rather than produced by an ego
Right.
that wants to be
Label it.
right. Yeah, label. Okay, I'm gonna make bodhicitta now, as opposed to I sit there and bodhicitta comes, and that's the.
Right.
And also what you said about isn't meditation, like one person asking you, isn't meditation a kind of addiction? I really appreciated that you said that, well, definitely not for me. And it does, it requires some degree of effort to decide to come and sit. And that there's a difference there between that and addiction. I don't know, maybe you can say a little bit more of the distinction there between addiction and, because it seems to me that meditation is something that can help us to see where we're addicted to things.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But it's not itself, shouldn't be confused with addiction.
I mean, I think addiction is just an obsessive attachment, It's like you think you can't do without it.
Mm-hmm.
And, and like eating, well, it can become an addiction, but actually we need to eat. And I don't know, maybe zazen can become an addiction, but I don't just like, oh, I gotta go do zazen.
Yeah.
Okay, it's time for zazen, put on.
Right,
Yeah.
so-
And then when I'm there, sometimes I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm glad I'm here, I may have resisted it, but I'm always glad when I get there.
And then isn't there other times also where you really feel like sometimes I need to sit?
Yeah, I mean, even though my name means right stillness, that's the hardest thing for me. When I was at Mount Equity, all know what Mount Equity is. Right? When I was at Mount Equity, there was a room for people who sat still and people who wiggled.
Oh.
So I sat in the wigglers room. I've never been able to sit still. I've been teased about it forever. And that's why I was really surprised when I got that name. I thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. Roshi was pointing to that stillness that we have within, I think. I don't know. But, so here I am, and I'm one of the priests that's giving talks there, but I'm with the wigglers. So the last day, Diane-san says to me, Teijo, you should come in and sit in the other room. And I said, yeah, but it's really hard for me to sit still. And she says, you can do it.
So did it change based on the day, or were you just labeled as the wigglers?
No, you could move into the sit still room if you were committed to sitting still, but clearly I wasn't. But it did bring up a level of commitment, and thank you very much, Diane-san, because that really helped me a lot. I was able to sit still for that day, so.
I remember my teacher, Diane Roshi, also saying that when we first start to practice Zazen, we do Zazen, but after a while, Zazen does us.
Yes.
Or we were pulled to do Zazen.
Yes.
It's different.
Yes.
And a shifting of our orientation.
I mean, I couldn't give up Zazen just like I couldn't give up eating, but I don't think I'm not worried about being addicted to it. If I am, I'm good with that.
Well, I think you can turn anything into addiction, can't you? I mean, anything. And, well, and interestingly, because what we've been talking about, I think a lot of where addiction comes from is a want to control, like to control your experience, no matter what it is you're addicted to. So, which is interesting because that's, in Zazen, it's all about letting go of control and letting go of trying to control. And that's what I like about you saying, like how Bodhicitta manifests. It's almost like if you garden or if you are gonna grow a plant, you yourself, you're not growing the plant, you were creating the causes and conditions for the plant to grow.
Enabling.
Yeah, you are creating the cause, and it's the same thing I feel like with Zazen and Bodhicitta. You're just creating the cause, you're just sitting down and shutting up and then seeing what happens. And and sometimes you have a really cool experience and most of the times you don't, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, it brings you to the present moment.
Yeah.
Really. That's what Shikantaza really does.
Yeah.
And just showing up for the Sangha is really a bodhisattva practice. I remember one time in Minnesota Zen Center, I lived about 5 blocks. Nobody lived there except the Katagiris, they lived upstairs. And so it was lots of, it was cold, and it was a cold winter. And it was Saturday morning, and I thought, oh yeah, I just don't want to go to my early morning Zazen. And I don't know why, but for some reason I just stepped beyond that resistance and went. And there was a whole group of people there from Carleton College and Roshi. And he really needed help taking care of these people. And I thought, oh wow, because when you just step beyond that resistance or something, there's something there that needs to be taken care of. You see there's something, I don't know how to explain it, but I've had that experience a lot of just that moment when you step beyond that resistance. And after you do that for a while, you start to sort of, when you feel the resistance, you see beyond the resistance, and then you say, just take one step. And then you take a step, and then you're beyond the resistance, It's so interesting. Kadiri Roshi used to always say, just take one step. And I know, that's all it is. It's just one step beyond what you think you can't do, what you don't want to do.
Cleaning the bathroom, just grab it, spray the stuff, and then just start doing it.
Yeah, Nona always said, never trust the mind that doesn't want to sit Zazen.
So how long did you know Nona?
Noni, we were figuring it out. I think he came to Zen Center around 1981.
Okay.
So that's how long I knew him. Since then, I was there already. I remember when he first came, he was painting the kitchen. I guess that's what he was doing for a living with it. Noni did lots of things. And he was a smart guy. Yeah, I told some of you this story, one of my favorite stories of Noni. Roshi told me to call him when it was time to receive dharma transmission. Roshi was very sick. We didn't know how long he was going to live, but this dharma transmission was going to happen somehow. And so Roshi told me to call him, and he was in Japan, in a very remote place. And he called back, and I was like, Noni and Roshi wants you to come because we're going to do dharma transmission. He said, oh no, I can't come now. I said, but you need to come. Roshi said, come. And he said, no, I can't come now. I just discovered what a big ego I have. I guys have known, and you know that is a lifetime practice. You're not just gonna knock it out there at the monastery. But I was so impressed by that, I was so really deeply moved by that, because, wow. That's a big awakening. Of course, not so pleasant, probably.
Any other questions?
Yeah, it looks like we probably should end, huh?
We'll have a closing chant.
The many beings are numberless, vowing to carry them across.
The many beings are numberless, vowing to carry them across.
Greed, anger, and ignorance rise endlessly, vowing to cut off the mind road.
Greed, anger, and ignorance